Hey, what's going on? Keith B. Dixon, it's official. You are in the Kilo Bravo Delta Zone. And guess what, you guys? I'm gonna be dropping photography knowledge all day long, right? Welcome back to another Kilo Bravo Delta podcast broadcast. My name is Keith B. Dixon. I'm your host tonight, and we're gonna be talking about quick steps to building a micro brand. You hear about brand all the time. You know, to be honest with you, it's a little bit of a fluffy word. You know, everybody wants to establish a brand. So, I kind of like the idea of having a brand. I think it's important. I think it's necessary for small business. I'm going to drill it down just a little bit, and I'm going to call it a micro brand because I think we might get just a little better acceptance with that. So if you're a small business out there, we're going to call it a micro brand. You'll hear me refer to it as that. So we're going to cover 5 steps to building it. If you're a photographer, you got to have a portfolio. That's number one. Your presentation. How are you presenting your work? Are you telling stories with your work? Yes, even about yourself. Are you telling a story? Are people interested in you because you're interesting? And then guess what? Are you tracking time versus your dollars? Because oftentimes when we give away things or we take too long, people kind of see that as maybe, they kind of see it like maybe you don't have your stuff together. So we're going to talk about tracking dollars versus time. And then here's the clincher. Is it the right product for the right client? That's always going to be important. That's a very important question. And that's all going to lead up to you building a micro brand. So let's dive right into this. Okay, so I know you've heard the word brand before, branding, brand. And let me give you a quick quasi definition. A brand is something that a lot of people are familiar with and they're comfortable with it. It comes with credibility, reliability. It's predictable. A brand is all of those things and more. So whatever you could think about that's related to the words that I just gave you, that's probably what your brand is. And it's recognizable. I think that's probably the most important things, like Coca-Cola, Pepsi, in any food maker that you, General Mills, those are all brands. Those are large scale brands. And I think as a small business, we also develop that in our communities. So we're brands. And I've had this conversation on social media in the past. And one of the things that I wanted to address was a comment that Sheryl Sandberg had made about we're not brands as small businesses. Only companies can be brands. And we talked that through. I even got Susie Barnes involved in it, and she wrote this blog piece. And if you don't know Susie Barnes, just definitely check her out, Susie Barnes. She's a social media consultant and professional. And she wrote a blog entry as it relates to what a brand really is. And she's also a professor at the University of San Francisco, so it made a lot of sense. So we are brands, and we establish our brands. The thing that I want you to know about that is we're not a big brand per se. We're not like General Mills. We're not like, Acura or Honda. But we're a brand, and I'm going to call that a micro brand. We're just a small microcosm of something in our industry, and that's okay. It's good to be a small brand or a micro brand. So, in developing yourself as a photography studio, freelancer, whatever the case may be, one of the most important things, this is your lifeblood. And oftentimes as photographers, we take it for granted, but our portfolio is our life's blood. It really is. It will cut you off at the knees if it is wrong. If it's wrong for the audience, if it's wrong for the purpose, if it's wrong in its delivery, if it's wrong in the content, you are going to basically lose. And I want you to really understand that. You should probably spend as much time developing and targeting your portfolio as you would counting your money. It's that important, because if it's wrong, you won't even get to the second part of counting your money. You won't even get any business, and you'll be twiddling your thumbs wondering why. Now let's tackle a real problem, and I'm going to pull back the rug and be very candid with you. Most people don't want feedback on their work. They don't want to hear it. They just want to put it out because they've worked really hard. And I'm going to say, in a lot of cases, most of us have pushed ourselves to our limit, to the limit that we're going to break. It is all we have, the best of our ability, and then you present that to someone and they say, you know what, it's not good enough, or it's okay, or there's mistakes, and you feel crushed. I'm going to tell you that that's part of the program. You should feel crushed, because if it's not right, if it's not meeting the standard, why do it? Would you fly on an airplane that was below standard maintenance standards? Absolutely not. You wouldn't even set foot on it. So you can't take that double standard and twist it in your way. So you have to know that whatever you produce, even if it's a final, it's going to be a first draft of what you do in your portfolio. Now, here's a mistake, and this is arguable. I like to say narrow your focus, because when you narrow your focus, you single out an audience. The one thing that I see photographers do a lot is they have 5 or 6 different types of things that they do, and most of the time they're unrelated. Now, you want to make sure that whatever you're doing, if you offer 3 services, there are 3 services that work cohesively together. For instance, maternity, engagement shoots, and weddings. Those all work cohesively together. Matter of fact, that's a bag right there. You know, on the East Coast, they say, let's get some bags, right? Let's get some money bags. That's a money bag right there. Or on the West Coast, we might say that's a money grab, right? So you have to find products that are closely related, and I wouldn't offer more than 3. When you've got 5 or 6 products, it's like, oh my God, like, which one are you really good at? You know what I mean? Now, it's not wrong to do a lot of different things. I do architectural photography. I've been doing that just as long. I do corporate event, print on site, and portraits. Those are 2 separate websites, marketed 2 separate ways. Now, depending on who you are as my client, you may know me as an architectural brand, or you may know me as a commercial print on site photographer. I'll take it either way, but they're separated, and I don't market them together. They don't live in the same space. So that's my narrow focus but broad approach. So I want you to think about how important your portfolio is, and I would challenge you, if you're developing a portfolio, a website, send it to me. Post it in the Bomb Squad on Facebook. As you know, we have a community called the Bomb Squad on Facebook. Do a request to join if you're not a member, and get on there and say, hey Keith, I'd like for you to review my portfolio. You can DM me. Now look, I'm going to tell you the truth about it. I'm going to handle you with kid gloves depending on what your experience level is. And believe me, I've worked with portfolios from the highest to the lowest, right? Some elite photographers on down. I've evaluated people's portfolios. Why? Because I used to work in magazine. So that gave me the credibility to do it. So narrow your portfolio down to your target market. That is one of the quickest ways to build consistency and what people see. Now, here's the second biggest mistake that I think a lot of photographers make, is they don't spend a lot of time on presentation. Now, today, I did a photo shoot today, and this photo shoot actually ties into these next 3 points that I'm going to make before we close out. It wasn't anything like super big. It was just a family portrait, and as I'm walking to the location with the person, with the client, she says, hey, I took a look at your website, and she made a comment about my bio, photography chose me. And I said, yeah, you know, because I never, you guys might find this hard to believe, I didn't want to be a photographer. Had an uncle who was a photographer. He shot a lot of pictures, and a brother who was a serious hobbyist with photography. They shot film, and I just wasn't interested in it that way. Most of the photographers I knew, they just, you know, they were making an okay living. I wanted to tap into the oil well, you know what I mean? And I just didn't know any photographers who were doing it. So it wasn't a high priority for me. But as I started to travel more, I started to really, really fall in love with it. I started to, I would go out and separate myself from the world, literally, as I was making those pictures. I mean, nothing, I couldn't see anything else. I couldn't hear anything else around me. And that's what drove me to photography. So as I started to become more and more professional through training and education and building clients, I started to realize that my presentation needed to be spotless. And I've worked on it for years. It's not going to happen overnight. And the thing that I want you to know about your presentation is your final output, your final is really your first draft. You should have, if you have 30 iterations of a design, I'm going to tell you that's probably a great thing. Most companies, I don't know if you guys will know this, this was a statistic back in the day. Most companies will draft a letter that they're going to send out as a communication. Will draft a letter at least 100 times. It will go through almost 100 revisions from start to finish. So if a large corporation is doing that, if we're really calling ourselves brands and we want to be respected on that level, we've got to act accordingly. If you want to draw in the client, because I'm going to tell you, your presentation is so important. I rarely meet with clients these days, rarely. And, I'm booking jobs in the double digits, and I'm rarely meeting those clients face to face. Most of it is done online. There's a communication that happens online. If they like the work, it's like, okay, we're past step 1, step 2. And I'm going to tell you, social media is also a big part of it. It's like them getting a video interview of me and who I am and what I've done without ever really even talking to me. And I believe that's the way of the future. And if you're going to be joining me in Nashville at Imaging USA, my course that I'm going to be presenting on is, it starts on Monday, January 15th at 10 o'clock. It's a 90-minute session, Imaging USA Nashville. I'm going to talk about the importance of your presentation and using social media as a way to create an interview process that's going to bring you to the table with a client, so that there's no question or no doubt about your character or your value. They're going to see that in your live streams, in your videos, your vlogs, whatever you're doing out there that's video related, or whatever you're writing. So your presentation is everything. Now, I said all of this because I'm telling you a story about myself, and that's my third point. Stories are very important in how we make our decisions. What's the story? You ever hear that cliche? What's the story, man? What's the story, lady? Okay, can you tell me what happened? All right, this is how we make our decisions. We live in an age right now where no one wants to be sold anything. That's just, it's becoming more and more obvious. No one wants to be sold because there's so much of it going on the internet. And let me sidebar for a quick second. I would say this on my morning Periscopes. Look, I got to do a sidebar. I'm going to go off track. I'm like jazz music. I'm on beat. And then I'm going to go off beat. Look, here's the ideal. The powers to be, they're figuring out how to squeeze every ounce of blood out of these nickels that are floating around on the internet. They're trying to figure it out. And one of the ways I think they're going to do it is by compartmentalizing everything. It's already happening. If you have any type of cable TV service, everything is subscription based. Subscribe to this, subscribe to that, subscribe to that. The first line of strategy is to price out everything individually so it looks like it costs a lot, and then slap you with a package. That's what they're doing. That's been the pattern. So guess what? Same thing's going to happen here. Let's pull all these services together. We'll offer them as a package: Facebook, Instagram. And then guess what? Yeah, business will drop off, but there's so many millions of users out there that they're not making money off of. If they pick up 75% of those users and now they got them pay, guess what? They just made a fortune. So I want you to think about what this means in terms of telling stories. I just told you a story about something that I foresee. And if I'm in your ear, if I'm in your subconscious, in your mind right now, and you're thinking, holy smokes, I can totally relate to that, Keith. This is what people buy. This is the example. So let's talk about my fourth point, and then we're going to get up out of here, because the name of the game here is hit and run. Hit hard and run. hit you with that information over the head, and get up out of here. Now look, today I told you I was doing a shoot, 1 hour. I charged between $300 and $400 just for the session. And I'm in a park near my studio, and I know this park like the back of my hand. I've been photographing there for years, and we're just moving through. I think in 50 minutes we shot 5 sets of photos. What I'm thinking about is, how much am I making per hour? That's what I'm thinking about, per hour. How much time is it going to take me to process those images? And I'm going to tell you right now, the client already has the proofs. The shoot was at 11 o'clock. The client is I've already delivered the proofs. Pick out X number of photos. I'm going to further edit those and check them, send it off to the printer. By tomorrow, because she's probably going to look at those photos tonight and make her choice. By tomorrow, I'm going to be sending those off to the printer. And by the way, this broadcast, let me take a quick pause. This broadcast is brought to you by White House Custom Colors. You guys, one of the best labs in the country in terms of customer service. And guess what? When you order your prints from White House Custom Color, they put a Tootsie Roll in the box because the deal is sweet. Let's go. Yes. So by the time those images get to the client, I'm going to say it's probably been less than a week. And if I can sell them some prints, absolutely. Guess what? I do it on the site. Now, people do in-person sales and all that kind of stuff. I think if you have a studio and that's the name of the game, then go for it. I don't have, my studio's not designed that way. I'm a commercial photographer, and this was a referral-based job. So I want to spend as less time as possible directing someone on what they should do, and I want to spend as much time as possible doing other things. That's what I want to do. So in order to make that happen, I've got to have a system set up that will allow the client to make their own decisions. An automated system, make their own decision. Hey, Keith, I want the 16 by 20. I see the frame choices here. I want that. That's all online. They can pick whatever they want. So that's how you're going to look at how you're spending your time. You know, are you marketing? I want to spend a majority of my time marketing for business. That's what I want to do. Not actually making photos, but marketing, so that I can continually have opportunities to reach the clients that will support my business. And I'm saying it that way because that is my last point. When I'm tracking dollars versus time, I want to get the job done as quickly as possible for 2 reasons. 1, I want to continue on with my marketing efforts. And 3, I want to spend more time getting to actually know the client. And that's what's important, because that's how you build relationships and referral bases. So if you're just constantly grinding through the work and then you don't really get a chance to know your client, they're gonna walk away feeling like they didn't really get an experience. So that's the reason for it. Now, how do you do that? How do you basically cut your time in half on a shoot? I'm going to tell you that you have to be proficient in the craft technically. Now, I went out, and it's a funny thing. I saw this photographer, one of my students from way back, and he was out. He had these lights set up and all this kind of stuff going on. And one of the things he said was, "Keith, you know what? I'm not doing any more free shoots." And he kind of went through that whole thing. And you know what I was saying to myself? Well, this looks like it's taking a long time, which kind of leads me to believe that you might be losing money, because I'm going to tell you what I had with me. I had my Think Tank Navigator. And by the way, you guys, I am affiliated with Think Tank and White House Custom Colors, so full disclosure. So I have my airport navigator, a 85 prime, a 910 flash, Nikon 910 flash, and that was it. That's all I had. And basically, we shot 5 scenes, popped the light in, put them in, good spots where the lights was good, dropped in just enough fill flash, and I'm out. Composition, poses. You don't need to do more than that, because when you do, guess what? Your profit meter is going down the drain. And if you are in business, It's one thing to break even, it's another thing to profit. When you break even, you're doing everything right. When you profit, you're creating expansion for your business because you're getting extra money that you can use to do other things with. And that's what's important. So as you move through your photography business, you have to start tracking your time. And you're also going to do that through building processes. So whether it be an educational workflow that you develop, educational meaning, you shoot a certain way. You've been educated to shoot a certain way so that you can get from step 1 to step 10 very easily, and then you get into your post-processing. And by the way, you guys, I use Perfectly Clear for these jobs because the images are already as good as they're going to be in terms of coming off the camera. I run them through Perfectly Clear, and this is after I do my editing process. And then from Perfectly Clear, upload to the proof gallery to the client, pick X amount of pictures, and we're out. And I typically don't shoot more than 10 photos per scene. So that's the workflow, and that leads to profitability. Now, the right client is always important for me, and the right client is typically someone who will pay because they see the value in what I do and they like what I do. You mentioned, if you're listening closely, I didn't mention anything about liking the photos, because my number one objective is to get people to like me, to like what I do, to have a good experience. Because that part is already, them liking the photos, that was already taken care of when they booked and paid. So now it becomes step 2. I need you to be, we have to create this relationship so that you can remember me. That's really the key. And when I shoot behind other photographers, if they can't remember the photographer's name or who they were, that's a signal to me that they didn't have a good experience. So those are my 5 points. Those are quick steps to building a micro brand. And over time, you guys, this is not a fast process. Trust me, it takes a while to build a brand because you got a lot of things to figure out. This is the tip of the iceberg. So number 1, create a portfolio. Get it reviewed by some third parties, not your friend, not your mother, your brother, your cousin, your sister, but somebody that has no emotional ties to you. And get them to basically give you some honest feedback and say, would you pay $400 for a portrait session based on what you see right here? Second, narrow your focus as much as possible. If you want to do multiple services, make sure that they're related. Your presentation is everything. If you're designing and making your own website, I'm going to be honest with you, killing yourself. Like, forget it. You don't need to do it. You know what? Pay the money, because that company will become your team member. They will become your team member, and that's important. So quit playing around. You're not a website designer, you're a photographer. And farm that out, source it out, as we say. Source that out to someone and let them do the work. 3, tell a story. There's nothing worse than, you know what? I love clicking on About Us and seeing a bunch of photos. When I'm looking at a company, a bunch of photos of all the people and who they really are. My name is Joe. I love my dog, Willie, and I like to ski on the weekends. I like reading that kind of stuff because it gives me a feel for the culture of the company, the culture of the person, and what they're interested in. So tell a story about yourself. Connect that story to the style of work that you do. And if you just happen to be brave enough, I'm going to say brave because most people aren't, do some videos, YouTube videos, live streams, Periscopes, Facebook Lives, Instagram Live, whatever it is you're going to do. Make sure you do something so that you can represent your personal character outside of just, here's my photographs, I'm a great photographer. What if I need the whole experience outside of the photos? Most people do. 4th, track your time versus your dollars. Make sure that you are making more money than you are spending time. I think in any time I present a subject like this, I'm always going to bring this up. So there's a lot of ways you can track your time, and the first thing you're going to do is just develop a process for everything that you do. If you don't have a process for what you do, you are shooting in the wind. Number 5, your product has got to be able to support you. So if you're doing $75 portraits, then guess what? You won't be in business long. I guarantee you. Matter of fact, you can do $10,075 portraits. You're going to burn yourself out because it's just too much work. And unless you got people working for you, and then you're going to be, you know what? You're going to be no different than the person that's charging $1,000 and doing 5, and you're doing 10,000. You're doing the same amount of work. You have to figure out what's going to work best for you and go after it. So if it's volume, go after volume, but be smart about it and make sure that if you're going to lowball, because people do it, I call it the low-hanging fruit. There's a podcast broadcast on here called the low-hanging fruit. If you're going to get after the low-hanging fruit, put an upsell component in your process so that you can make more money. So I'm not opposed to the low-hanging fruit, you guys, not at all. I love the low-hanging fruit, is where I started. But just make sure you have an upsell component so that you can scale that 10,000 to 20,000, and make sure that you are not overselling your product. Okay, there it is. Build a micro brand. It takes time. You guys, thank you for listening. My name is Keith B. Dixon, commercial photographer, all day, every day in the San Francisco Bay Area. I will see you next time in the Kilo Bravo Delta Zone podcast broadcast. Peace.